This is part 15 of the book, The Ultimate Connection with God. Everybody should read this book. It's not the kind of thing that you learn one time like you read a novel and you put it down and then you go on to the next book. This is a safer book that you have to read over and over and over again, because the nature of the world that we live in is constantly changing. And so what you were able to attach yourself to a minute ago is now a new minute. So therefore we need to go over it, think about it, try to work it. You have to put in the work. So he says the end of time. The purpose of man's existence is to attach his soul to the higher world. Through this, he will be able to connect with him who is similar to. Now, let me read it again. I didn't read it on understand the 100%. The purpose of man's existence is to attach his soul to the higher world, to make a unity, and that's why the Kabbalists always talk about Yehudim, making unities. Through this, he will be able to connect with him who he is similar to. Now, the him that he's talking about has to be the Ein Sof Baruch Hu, that is God. So he writes, God in his infinite wisdom has disguised souls in material forms for a definite purpose, as discussed at length in the book of Shar HaGilgul, The Gates of Reincarnation, by the Holy Ari, the Rizal. Unfortunately, mankind has reached such complexity that this basic awareness has been completely lost. In present-day humans, consciousness is completely identified with its disguise, its outer form. It only knows itself as form and therefore lives in fear of the annihilations of its physical or psychological form. This is the egoic mind, and this is where considerable dysfunction sets in. Now let's go over this again. He's saying in present-day humans, consciousness is completely identified with its disguise, its outer form. So I do this a lot. I change hats. So if you change hats, you wear the same hat all the time, that becomes you. But if you keep changing the hat, so that the hat, hat actually makes a man. So you could look, that's your outer form. So what you top it off with, depending on if it's a red hat, a yellow hat, a green hat, or blue hat, or the style of hat, really says something about you. But if you keep changing them, that's what I do. It only knows itself as form, and therefore lives in fear of the annihilations of its physical or psychological form. For example, you got that job, and you are in charge. That's your physical form. That's your whole physicality there. This becomes you. You're the executive. Now there's executives at the bowling alley and there's executives in the penthouse. Everybody could be his own executive because that's his purpose of seeing himself in form. But he says this is the egoic mind, and this is where considerable dysfunction sets in. So he says, let's give a parable to understand this better. There once was a young prince whose father, the king, felt that his son was ready to leave the comforts of the palace and challenged him to venture into the, quote, real world, to become independent and gain a living on his own merit and strength. Concealing his identity and no one knowing who he really was, the young prince starts out on his journey with excitement and enthusiasm, slowing feels his energy level becoming depleted, as well as his money, due to his inability to cope with the tremendous demands of his new life. Now this is like coming out, the Adam Arishon, the first man, and his wife, that now two separate beings, have to enter into the world that we live in. They are the progenitors of us. Before that, they lived in a special place, a place that this wasn't the palace. But now, we all, their descendants, face this difficult world, With no other choice, he commences the work and enters the illusionary pursuit of wealth and happiness. Over time, he noticed that his actions are not drawing him any closer to his goal, but rather immersing him in an ever-spiraling chase for the invisible and the unreachable. One day, finding himself in a state of total exhaustion and close to a nervous breakdown, giving up all hope, he pauses. He is still and experiences a feeling of calmness, of assurance that all will be okay. There's nothing to fear. He's the son of the king. This parable describes the journey of the soul that God implants in all things to live in this physical reality we call the earth. The animated body and the spiritual soul, now in a tight-knit relationship, are here on this planet to gain awareness of their Creator and gain perfection for themselves in both the physical and spiritual dimensions. Let's see this again. The animated body. What is a body with a soul and with an aspect of godliness in it? So he said the animated body and the spiritual soul inside of it, now in a tight-knit relationship, are here on this planet. Why here on this planet? To gain awareness of their Creator and gain perfection for themselves in both the physical and spiritual dimensions. Now, some people think it has to be just the spiritual dimensions. He's saying it's the physical and spiritual dimensions. Here, there is a physical dimension also. In other words, well, you do have to make a living. But not only that, you have to get along with your husband or wife. You have to be able to see the godliness in all that situation and keep working on it, getting better at it. Now, this is done by following the scribe's set of rules to abide by the ultimate wisdom of God in his Torah. In order to transmute and transform themselves into elevated spiritual beings, in this prescribed time limit of 6,000 years. If necessary in his life's journey, that soul then lives in a state of ecstasy forever after. Now, I didn't get the best out of this, so I'm going to read it again. He says, this is done by following a prescribed set of rules to abide by the ultimate wisdom of God in his Torah. So we have 613 commandments. In order to transmute and transform themselves into elevated spiritual beings. We have the world exists, according to our rabbis and all the Kabbalists, for 6,000 years. This goes to the deep, deep concept of the 6 spheros of Zeranpin, which is Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferes, Netzach, Hod, and Yesod. Each one 1,000 years. And we're in the process of working through that. It has a time limit. That's the 6,000 years. According to the rabbis, we're in the year 5,784, about to change to 85. If successful in his life's journey, that soul then lives in a state of ecstasy forever after. The animated body, he writes, and the spiritual soul now live in a tight-knit relationship. Are here on this planet for what reason? To gain awareness of their Creator, which allows one, I'm thinking, to become one with their Creator. This is Baruch Fleischman, and you're listening to the Tikkun Elevator Kollel. We're just reading the works and the words of Rabbi Yosef Chaim Mimran.